right, 4.1a, this is about terminating and repeating decimals. And really what we're doing today, the majority of today, is to learn how to write fractions as decimals, okay? And that's your learning target, is I know how to write fractions as decimals. So, let's start out with some definitions just to get a good idea of what certain things mean, okay? So the first thing we want to define is repeating decimal. And a repeating decimal is a number whose decimal continues without stopping. Okay, so an example of that would be like pi. Okay, and pi, as we know, goes 3.1415926 almost messed up, 3, 5, and it keeps on going and going and going, and it actually does not stop. It will continue to repeat and repeat and repeat. Okay, so that's an example of a repeating decimal. Now, bar notation is a line over the top of a number, of repeating numbers, to represent that those numbers continue to repeat. So, for example, sometimes we might find that we have a decimal of like 0.444, and if we continue on and on, finding and dividing a certain fraction, we would end up getting just a bunch of 4s, and it would continue to repeat and repeat and repeat. So instead of just continuing to write 4, we can just write that as, that continues, as 0.4 with a line over the top of the 4 to show that the 4 is going to continue repeating and repeating and repeating. Okay? And then the last thing that we're going to define is terminating decimal. Sorry, and a terminating decimal is when a 0 becomes the repeating decimal. Okay, so for example, up here, this was a repeating decimal. A terminating decimal is when 0 is what just repeats and it goes on forever. Okay, so that might look like 0.6, and really 0.6 is just equal to 0.6 with a bunch of zeros after it. But we don't need to write it like that. We can just write it as 0.6 and know that that's called a terminating decimal because the numbers do not continue on any further than that. Okay. All right, so now we're going to get kind of into the meat of what we're doing today. And your key concept is to write fractions. To write a fraction as a decimal, what we have to do is we have to divide the numerator by the denominator. Okay, so example 1 here, let's look at write 9/10 as a decimal. Okay, all we have to do is we have to take that 9 and we have to put it inside the division problem. Okay, and we have to take this 10 and we have to put that on the outside. Now this is the very important part. Okay, the numerator goes inside the box, the denominator goes on the outside of the box, and what we can read that as, if we rewrite this, is 9 divided by 10. Okay, if you switch those around, the 9 and the 10 there, or whatever number you're working with, we're going to get a completely different answer. Okay, so now we just have to divide this. 10 goes into 9, obviously 0 times, and because we have to add a 0 over here, we have to put a decimal point down over here. And make sure you keep everything lined up. The more you keep things lined up, the more organized it'll be. And then 10 goes into 90, obviously 9 times, because 10 times 9 is 90. We subtract, we get 0 left over, and our answer then is 0.9. Or, as we can write this now as 9/10 is equal to 0.9. They're the same things. That's what this equal sign means, is that 9/10 is equal to 0.9. All right, let's do example 2. Example 2 now is a mixed number fraction. This is called a mixed number fraction when you have a whole number to some minimum or some fraction beyond that. Okay, so this is 7 3/5. That's a mixed number fraction. An improper fraction would be like 38 over 5, where we have a larger number over a smaller number. The answer will end up being this, but it is a larger number over a smaller number. Okay, you can change a mixed number fraction to an improper fraction by doing the denominator times the whole number, which is 35. 5 times 7 is 35, plus the numerator, which is 38, and putting that over the denominator. Okay, you can change it to a improper fraction, but before you go off doing that and then dividing 38 by 5, it's much easier to just know that our answer is going to have 7 and then a decimal point. Okay, and then just take your 3/5 and divide that out. So 3 divided by 5. 5 can't go into 3, but it can go into 30, so we have to add a decimal point, and it goes in 6 times, which is 30. Subtract, we get 0, and therefore we add the 0.6 that we just found for the this little fraction here, and we add that to the positive 7 of the whole number, and we get 7.6. Okay, and that's equal to 7 3/5. Alright, just got a couple more to show you, so go flip to the back page if you haven't already. And we've got example 3 here. It says write negative 1/25 as a decimal. Okay, so now we have this negative, and that can tend to mess us up a little bit. But don't let it mess you up, because it's really not that difficult. All we know is that this negative means that our answer is going to be a negative. Okay, and then we can just take this fraction like we've been doing and divide it. So 1 divided by 25, and again we know 25 can't go into 1, so we have to put a 0, and if we have to add a 0 like we're having to do, we have to put a decimal. 25 doesn't go into 10 either, so we have to put another 0, maybe extend this out a little bit, and add another 0, and 25 goes into 100 4 times, which equals 100. Subtract, we get 0 as our remainder. So our answer is negative 1/25 is equal to negative 0.04. Okay, so we're just showing we know how to change the fraction to a decimal, and we're using simple division techniques to do that. Okay, last example. Let's go through this one real quick. It says write 1/11 as a decimal. Okay, nothing's changed here. We still do 1 divided by 11, and we know, again, this is just a repeat, keep on repeating myself. 11 can't go into 1, so we have to put a 0. If we have to add a 0, we have to put a decimal. 11 can't go into 10 either, so we have to put another 0 and add another 0. And 11 goes 109 times, because 11 times 9 is 99. Subtract, we get 1 left over. 11 can't go into, I have to bring down a 0. 11 can't go into 10, so it's going to be 0. But we can add another 0, and 11 can go into 109 times. And what we notice, we can stop right here, we notice that what this is going to continue to do is 0.090909, and it's going to keep on going in that same pattern. So instead of just continuing to solve for 0.090909, we can just write 1/11 fraction as 0.09, and we use that bar notation to put that this is going to keep on going forever and over, and it's just going to repeat between 0 and 9, back and forth, back and forth. Okay, that's how to change a fraction to a decimal. Enjoy and take luck.